Meeting to order. This meeting is held in the Sherman School Gymnasium Auditorium. It is an open session of the Rosa Park Board of Education held under the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey. Notice of this meeting was sent to the Star Ledger, Union Leaders, the Home News Tribune, Zoom, Borough Clerk, and school offices and district website. Roll call, please.
President Harms.
Here.
Vice President Miller.
Here.
Mr. Cancino. Mr. Gerton. Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Mr. Lyman.
Here.
Ms. Powers. Mr. Sekou. Mr. Signorello.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Please rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll open the first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on the agenda items only, please come forward, state your name and address.
Jacob University Exposure again, we look so far. Raise the general minorities, students, viewing audience, members of the board. Good evening. I have one simple request. Pay 10% for public expenses with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, I'm Donnelly, 345 East Lincoln Avenue. There's a reference to item number 2 in regarding medical leave absence of Ms. Kathy Ford for the high school. It's my understanding that French 4 now for the rest of the year that the students are going to be taught through Rosetta Stone. Is that true, or will there be an actual replacement for her?
We are exploring a program, and it has been very difficult for the district to find a French replacement teacher. Certainly, there will be someone in the classroom to supervise students. The instructional method we are definitely exploring, but it could be a self-directed type of program.
You realize this is a huge disservice to those students in French 4 now, because, and quite frankly, if they're not going to have instructional Rosetta Stone services, can they just take their class at home and study at home? Because it's basically...
Yeah, that's something that, we can discuss, Mr. Donnelly, if you want to call me in my office, and we'll certainly discuss it, and I'll certainly explore all options. Especially French 4, it's been extremely difficult to find a replacement teacher for any subject, actually.
I haven't seen it posted. Was it posted somewhere, or was it posted?
It was posted, yes. Yes.
Where was it posted exactly, please?
Internally.
Will you be advertising externally as well?
Well, when we usually advertise, I have to check into this. Internally, we also advertise on nj.com with the public. We did not advertise in the Star Ledger, but we did advertise in other things. But we can always repost to see who gets on.
I think that'll be a great idea. Because really, for these students in French 4, they've come so far now, the last working period is really going to go back.
But I'll tell you, just out of experience, I had experience with, those self-directed types of programs in the state. It's really I've been looking because it's so difficult to find well-trained world language teachers. They've been very successful in the past. But I understand what you're saying. Just the continuity of having that.
Listen, we used it over the summer to go to France. They got come on. It's not the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So appears 150 Berlin Street, just for the sake of protocol. Mr. Curtin, Mr. Cancino, and Ms. Powers gave notice.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 19, will that be set aside for a second discussion? The budget.
We good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion. At this time, we'll go into committee reports. Any committee reports?
Mr. Harms, good evening. I do have a finance committee report, but I will wait until we have the budget presentation. Already have
Thank you. Any other committee?
Yes, Mr. President, we met that the scheme project, a little hiccup, but we'll steam ahead. Thank you. That's right. We'll steam ahead.
The choo-choo head?
And if everything goes well, the first day at the school, that will get construction going, and they use the word term wrenches or spring hammers. Hopefully on Thursday after, we have a couple of more hurdles to go to. We'll see what happens on, maybe this summer.
Anyone else?
I have a question for Mr. Signorello. Mr. Signorello, concerning the steam project, are all the bids in?
No, because we met, I just want to say we met, if everything goes well, we'll have construction. So just a clarification, we met as a committee, if everything goes well with all the bids, so we will hope to be on progress. That's all.
Thank you.
Bids are supposed to due in April 9th. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close the committee reports. At this time, we'll go into the principal's report. Well,
Good evening, Mr. Garrido, Mr. Harms, all of the Board of Education. Welcome tonight also, our students, parents, don't mind my back, sorry, and community members, students, parents, and community members to our meeting tonight, where we will recognize the achievements of our budding artists and musicians here at Sherman School, sitting up here in the front row. Before we do, I'll just provide a short update. We currently have 388 learners here at Sherman School, young learners. It's hard to believe we're already in our third marking period. Time sure does fly. Your children are working really hard each day as staff aims to help them master concepts and challenge their thinking. Thank you for your support of our programs at Sherman, and for those of you that come out and volunteer, we really appreciate that with our PTA, whether you're attending meetings or chairing fundraisers or just chairing fun events for the kids. It's really nice to see you as a big part of our school. A few highlights over the past few months: we worked on understanding the meaning of kindness in our thoughts, words, and actions through daily messages and recognition of kind acts throughout our building. For Black History Month, our teachers focused on famous Black Americans that made a difference in the history of our country. Our student council headed up our Pennies for Patients drive with each student and homeroom collecting their loose change to benefit those fighting blood cancers. We just received the wrap-up report this week, and our school, you'll be the first ones to know, has raised $2,372.14. So give yourselves a big round of applause. Read Across America in March was a fun-filled week of themed days and evening reading event run by the PTA. And on March 2nd, visits from readers from our school district and the community to share their love of books with our children. We just also finished up with classroom visits from the CAP program, which is Child Assault Prevention. We received through a grant, all of the elementary schools received, which taught our students about their rights to be safe, strong, and free. They also did a parent program at one of our PTA meetings. You probably saw the flyer, which was a really successful program. The teachers were in those lessons also and gave lots of feedback. I also attended, and I thought it was a great opportunity for our school and for the students. And how did you guys like those lessons? Did you enjoy them in the classroom? Yeah. And let's not forget, we celebrated many of you on Special Person Day on March 12th, and in the effort to make sure that we kept our school safe, we did have everyone sign in with ID. We made sure we knew who would be in the building. We had police presence here because it was a very huge turnout, and it was a lot of people coming into this one gym to check in, but we left about a half hour prior, and everything worked out really great, and running it that way, I think, was a really good way to keep the school secure and make sure we knew who was in our building. Grades 3, 4, and 5, I know, are so excited as they're preparing for park testing to happen in May by embedding the skills of the test in their classroom lessons, of course, and with extra practice for students in Energized Math after school. There are many upcoming events to look forward to, so please mark your calendars as you see that April calendar come home. Now, for our most important reason that we're here, it's with great pride and honor that I want to introduce the students here this evening to you. They have special artistic and musical abilities that you need to know about. The arts are also an important part of the education here at Sherman School, and the talent of these students should be recognized. So congratulations to all of you for receiving your awards tonight. Give yourselves a free round of applause. You're doing awesome. I don't have to wear my glasses, because you know the eyes go after 40. That'll tell you. We are going to start with our NJ PAC artists, and you'll be able to see up on the screen the artwork that won these awards. Our NJ PAC Artist Awards, this exhibit, sponsored by the Art Educators of New Jersey, is a juried exhibit with only 30 pieces of art from around the state, grades K to 12. 3 of our students received this award. Evan Birmingham. Take a look at Evan and take a look at the picture. Congratulations. Josephine Chatelaine. Here's her beautiful picture. And next. There you go. Josephine's through the trees, right? Awesome job, Josephine. And not here this evening, Samara Frias, first grader. And that's her picture that she made of the sun. And unfortunately, she's not here, but we'll make sure she gets her award tonight. Okay, our next awards are for Youth Art Month Design finalists. This contest, thank you, also sponsored by the Art Educators of New Jersey. There's a theme every year, and the students must design a poster related to the theme. All of the posters are judged at the school level, and 3 to 4 school finalists are selected to represent the school at the state level for judging. Okay, not here this evening, but one of our finalists, Ying Chow. There's her artwork, the poster, Sophia Ortiz. And there's Sophia's artwork, building community through art is the theme. And Gianna Q. Also, congratulations on her poster design. And I got to see them in real life when they came in. So even though these are pictures, you can see what a great job and the detail work that they did on these. Congratulations. Union County Art Month exhibit, also this is sponsored by the Art Educators of New Jersey. The Union County exhibit showcases 3 pieces of art from each participating school. Our winners here, Jacqueline George, again, Gianna Q. Congratulations. And not here this evening, but Yasmin Santos, one of our fifth graders also. Also winning, out of those the poster contest, the Art Educators of New Jersey's Youth Art Month Design Contest, Ying Chow's artwork was selected to represent the state as the K-8 State Youth Art Month Invitation. Her artwork was on exhibit at the State House in Trenton, and she was honored there on March 9th. And Gianna Q, who is here, her Union County artwork selected to represent Union County at the State House in Trenton, and she was also honored on March 9th. Only 6 pieces from each county are selected for this honor. So congratulations to you guys, all of our artists. Okay, artists, you may sit down. Picture first, okay.
All of our artists.
Now I do need my glasses, see? Okay, and our next awards are for our musical students. We have, some of our students are going to be representing our school. They're chosen for the Morris Union Jointure Music Festival, which is happening on April 29th. They are either performing in the band or choral renditions, correct? So this evening, 2 of our students that are performing in the band are there practicing, because Tuesday night is their night to practice. So they aren't here to accept their awards, but we do want to say their names: Madison O'Connell and Felix Langan, 2 of our fifth graders. Now for our chorus, we have a number of students representing. We have Lauren Donnelly. I don't think you sing the song though, unless you want to. Sophia Ortiz. I bet if I put a microphone in front of her, with us. Shuria Chabra. Congratulations. Arya Chabra. Congratulations. Audrey Miller. Congratulations. Noah Orlando. Isabel Latour. Congratulations. And also absent this evening, one of our artists too, Ying Chow, is also going to be in the chorus for the Music Festival. You'll also, I'm sure, see some of these friends in our upcoming variety show that is going to be held April 13th, so you'll be getting some information. They're currently practicing, and they'll be doing some very special numbers at that. We will have a night show and a day show, and thank you to our PTA for running that this year. All right, so let's get our picture. I can't tell you how much fun it is working with you guys every day at Sherman School. Great job, everyone. Thank you.
And congratulations to all the students. Great job. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 2-minute break so you young students can go home and do homework or watch TV, one or the other. So we'll take a few minutes.
5:30, I always leave. You don't know how to get there, right?
For the budget presentation, I just want to comment on our school calendar. As you know, we've had a very difficult March in terms of inclement weather. We built 3 days into our calendar, and anything that goes beyond those 3 days, we must make up because the law says that students must be in school 180 days. The calendar committee back over a year ago put together a calendar and also included make-up dates. The board exhausted all options to make sure that we had the least disruptive day for students to come in, including spring break or what have you. We decided that we were going to stick to the original day, which is April 6th. It's the Friday of spring break, to make up the day that we had to make up. However, recognizing that attendance may be low, I am recommending to the board that we go on a 4-hour day, which will be an early dismissal for the students. The reason for that, once again, if we do have very low attendance, it makes sense to have the 4 hours, which is by law, we can. 4 hours of uninterrupted instruction counts as a full day. So what we're going to do tomorrow, we'll be posting on the website, we'll be making our phone blast and also email blast to let the parents know that April 6th will be a school day, which is next Friday. It will be a 4-hour day, so that will be early dismissal. Most of the districts around the state, I did some research, and they're doing very similar to what we're doing here. That will be the only make-up day that we have to make sure that we have the 180 days left. Again, the board did everything, exhausted all options to make sure that we were to find the least disruptive day that we can. So next Friday, kids will be back. Hopefully, it won't be the most beautiful day of the week and during spring break, but we will be here. We'll be open for business. Okay. Now, what I would like to do is relinquish the rest of the time, and I would like to introduce Mr. Miller, the finance chair, to begin the tentative budget presentation. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Garrido. Good evening, everyone. Board members. Just wanted to talk about our tentative budget for the year 2018-2019. And I'm going to introduce a few things and then I'm going to hand it off to Mrs. Guercio. So we've been working on the budget. We've been meeting for the past 2 months, and we've actually met 5 times. And we started back on January 19th and had obviously multiple meetings and convening. And I just wanted to thank our finance committee, that's Mr. Sekou and Ms. Powers, for meeting with Ms. Guercio and Mr. Garrido as well as we developed the budget. And a lot of it was contingent on many things, and some things that were out of our control and some things that were in our control. But it all came down to the March 13th Governor Murphy's budget address when he gave out the figures. The state figures were released after his address. He gave the address on the 13th and the figures were released on the 15th. And shortly after that, actually the next day, we convened for our 4th finance meeting on the 16th to discuss the state aid the additional state aid that we received as a district, which was a positive for Roselle Park. And here we are now on the 27th, where we're going to vote on adopting the tentative budget, and that is, I believe, agenda item 19. So what's going to happen going forward after this, we're going to basically vote on the budget, the tentative budget, and then we're going to send it to the county for approval. And that is due March 29th, and that's why we have the meeting on the 27th, not only to inform the public, but also to get it passed so that we can have everything prepared and send it up to the county by March 29th. And then following that, we wait for county approval, and that last day for county approval is going to be April 24th. And then we will have, that same day, we will have the Roselle Park public hearing on the budget at 7 o'clock at the high school. That's April 24th. And then we'll be adopting the budget, if all goes well, on May 8th. And that's at the board meeting at 7 o'clock at the middle school. So we're looking forward to that. Now, a couple things for 2018-2019, there's some changes and as far as expenditures are concerned. Obviously, things that always rise are the salaries. They're going to increase by an estimated $450,000. Also, our health insurance, that is increasing 5%, which is close to $285,000. That will be increased as well for our expenditure. Other expenditures that we have, we will have lease purchase that we're doing to allow us to improve technology, as you can see. And also we use the lease purchases to purchase textbooks, new equipment, and furniture. Now concerning new equipment, most of that is going to be specifically designated for the STEAM project at the high school. And also there's other furniture needs at other buildings as well. Infrastructurally, we're going to be using the lease purchase funds for a couple needs. The most pressing needs are a new generator at the middle school, which we'll get. And also, we desperately need a new pickup truck with a plow for the high school. So those are all part of the expenditures that we'll have. And then going down the line to the fourth bullet there is the increase in out-of-district tuition costs. Primarily, one of the biggest cost there is the special education costs that we have to educate our children with special needs. And also the magnet schools in Union County, they're creating new programs which we have to fund our share at being a Union County school as well. So the new magnet programs, that does add to our expenditures. And then finally, the other expenditure that we have is the high school STEAM project, the construction, which is going to be built into the budget as an expenditure. And we can't use lease purchase for construction, so that's why it's going to be a separate line item for that. And as Mr. Signorello said, and Ms. Gerso told me as well, we're waiting on the bids, and hopefully we'll be awarding them shortly in April. And start construction. Hopefully we can get started, like Mr. Signorello said, in June. And now we're on to the revenues, and I'm going to hand that off to Ms. Gerso because she can be the bearer of good news. Ms. Gerso. Not that the expenditures are bad news, because they're for a good cause, the education of our children. Just make that point.
When the budget figures came out after the new governor gave his address, we got some very excellent news, and that is the fact that Roselle Park received some additional state aid this year. We actually received an additional $548,170. Some other little changes in our revenue. Excess surplus this year slightly decreased from the previous year. We're also seeing some small decrease in miscellaneous revenue that comes into the district. And our debt service payment is smaller, so therefore that revenue item also matches and is less than the previous year. In more detail, this chart shows the actual revenues from 2017, 2018, in comparison to what we're proposing for 2018-2019. In the software that all school district utilizes to input the data to the New Jersey Department of Education, they come up with a computation that determines what the maximum tax levy, school tax levy will be for each school district. You see on this slide on the right that computation this year. It begins by taking the previous year tax levy, which was $21,537,847, and adds to that any enrollment adjustment that is given. The state of New Jersey Department of Education is giving Roselle Park a slight increase in enrollment adjustment, and that is an amount of $60,078. They then take that subtotal and determine 2% of that subtotal. And when you do that math, that 2% comes to $431,959. Finally, we qualified for a small adjustment due to health benefit increase, and that adjustment was $85,321. Adding all that together determined the New Jersey Department of Education's maximum school tax levy for Roselle Park for this 18-19 year to be $22,115,205. That was the maximum amount that we could raise in our budget without having to get special permission from the voters in the town of Roselle Park. However, that being said, when the Finance Committee worked with me to determine our budget, especially once we received the good news with the additional state aid, we decided to not go to the maximum tax levy. Instead, we're proposing for the 18-19 school year a general fund tax levy of $21,754,978, which if you do the math, it's approximately 1%. The other revenue items stayed fairly the same in comparison to the previous year. The revenue we bring in from tuition, parent paid tuition, tuition from other school districts that send their students to one of Roselle Park's special programs. We received from the town of Roselle Park, the borough, $72,000 to run the after-school program at the Anthony C. Morello Youth Center. Then we have our typical miscellaneous revenues such as athletic gate receipts and other sort of legal refunds that come into the district. The state aid figures were given to us in slightly different categories from the previous year. As you can see, categorical transportation aid increased from the previous year. Extraordinary aid we're estimating to be about the same, $200,000. Categorical special education aid increased this year. Equalization aid stayed exactly the same as the previous year. Categorical security aid increased. And Medicaid reimbursement we are estimating to be about the same. The other small state aid figures that came about during Governor Christie's term of office have disappeared. His other state aid of $1, the park readiness aid per pupil growth aid, and professional learning communities aid are no longer given. But in spite of that, keep in mind, we did receive over $500,000 in additional state aid. Excess surplus is $522,003. We should be determining the usual grants such as IDEA and ESEA. And we do have our debt service, which decreases this year as we now start to pay down the referendum from approximately 15 years ago, and that will continue to decrease and will be totally paid off in the year 2025. Also, there's a note on this slide on the right that since we are not going to the maximum tax levy allowed to us by law, the school district will then be putting in what's known as banked cap, that if necessary could be used in the future. Finance committee and the board decided that it would be best to reserve that just in case there's some traumatic change to state aid in the future. No one knows what the future will bring. Which then brings us to the expenditures. Of course, the majority of our budget is always comprised of salary and health dental benefits. As we mentioned in the previous slide, we do anticipate, of course, a change in salary, a change in health and dental insurance costs. Many of the other figures stay relatively the same. We are seeing an increase in out-of-district tuition costs for special education. We're also seeing an increase in out-of-district tuition for regular education. That would be students going to the Scotch Plains campus for a variety of programs there. Utility costs, phone and internet, special ed costs, related service costs are relatively the same. We do track and compare one year to the next when we come up with our estimates. Transportation going up slightly because if we're sending more students out of district to special ed programs throughout the state, of course, transporting them will increase as well. Contract and maintenance services, there's a neat increase for a particular reason. I'll explain that in a moment. Insurance, grants, debt service listed here. Lease purchase. Let me explain. If you recall, last year we received additional state aid after the budget was struck. We then decided to include it in this 17-18 year budget, and we're including it in the following way. We are going to make double lease purchase payments on 3 of our lease purchases. By doing that, it allows us in next year's budget, 18-19, to budget 0 in those line items. And by doing that, gave us some flexibility to proceed with the capital outlay item of the STEAM renovation project. We no longer have to include rent for the early childhood center, so that item now becomes 0. The legal settlement that we've been paying the last 2 years will now decrease to $100,000. And by the way, that's the final payment that will be done and will disappear in the future budget. Tuition reimbursement, we're obligated to by contract, and that will stay the same. Sick day payment is determined by the number of people who are retiring, so that is increasing slightly. We have a few more people retiring this year. Capital outlay is the cost for those special construction projects. Last year's $600,000 was for the middle school roof. The $770,000 proposed in next year's budget is for the STEAM renovation classroom project. And then we have our miscellaneous category. On the right, there's a little explanation. When we got the news about the additional state aid, the committee met to make some decisions what we were going to do with that additional state aid. At the same time we received the news about the additional state aid, we also received an additional bill from the state. They give with one hand and take with the other. We found out that we have a Rosa Park child who is currently in a state facility residential program, and of course we're obligated for their educational component. So we had to include a previously unknown bill of $36,772. Earlier this evening, Mr. Signorella alluded to some slight hiccup in our STEAM renovation project. That little hiccup we found out about 2 weeks ago, that underneath the wood floor in the wood shop, there are some layers of asbestos that must be removed. So unfortunately, that type of removal must be done by environmental experts in a particular manner, and it's a costly process. So that increased our budget for that particular item by $70,000. Previously, we had talked about taking money out of capital reserve and maintenance reserve to fund this STEAM Wing project. Well, with the additional state aid that we received, we made a decision by committee to leave the money in capital reserve and maintenance reserve, not touch it at all this year, so that in the future we could possibly use it for some other project. The board has been discussing a number of projects that we would love to do. We need a lot of improvements in various parts of our facilities and grounds. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of money, so we thought if we left this money in reserve, possibly we can do some of those projects in the future. And then finally, $154,398 was put into the item listed there as contracted maintenance services for possible security measures in our 5 buildings. We've had a security committee that has been meeting with the police department to discuss some possible ways to improve security in all of our buildings. We're in the exploratory process at the moment. We're looking at things like more secure doors, a possible scan system to enter our buildings instead of using keys, metal detectors, etc. Once the committee gets the various quotes and does sufficient research, decisions will be made exactly which items that will be chosen to help improve security in our buildings. So by adding all those items together, that's how the committee and the board decided to utilize that additional state aid. A Of course, everyone is always concerned with tax levy, so real quick little look at the tax levy over the last several years. There were years in the past where our budget increased by over $1 million. Last year, 2017-18, we had approximately a $500,000 increase in our tax levy. With the budget that we're proposing this evening, there will be a $200,000 increase. So that's our smallest increase in a long time, probably smallest increase since the year we had a 0 increase. We will be doing a more detailed presentation at our public budget hearing in April. We are required to do this by law and must do it on April 24th, and that will be in the high school auditorium. At that time, again, we'll be giving a lot more information. But at this time, we are open to comments, suggestions. Mr. Pearson asked earlier about questions. So now is the time if you would like to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and give your comments.
Jacob McGarris, 6 Pro Sheridan Avenue, Roseville Park. Mr. Gershio, only management official could explain the budget. Last year, we had a copy of what we were reading from. This would help us to go along and follow what you were saying. If the screen is a little blurry, at least to me.
I have a copy here, Miss. I have a copy that I would be glad to give to you this evening.
Well, that's
Okay.
fine. Well,
And anybody else in the audience that would like one? And thank you for reminding me. I will make a note of it for next year to make sure we have it before the meeting starts rather than at this point in the meeting.
As I said, only management official could explain that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say that I'm a mathematician and I disagree. I think Gershio could do it better than a mathematician.
Well, thank you, Mr. Longman.
So,
Jake, I said, sorry, he asked me what I said. I'm a mathematician, and I think it takes more than just a mathematician to explain a budget like that. So props to Mr. Gershio for being not just a mathematician, but great communicator.
Maybe I was not kind enough.
So here's the 150 Borough Street. Just some questions. So the park readiness has been removed. I know it's kind of not part of the budget, but it is. There's been mention of the state moving away from park. Is that part of the reason? Is the board looking into that, into the district moving away from park? Yes.
There are federal guidelines that the state must meet to get the funding and the aid that we get. And one of the areas that is the accountability, which is assessments. So we're waiting for the state to give us guidance before we can make a decision, make recommendations to where we're heading with this. But I have a feeling that when they do away with park, they're going to have to replace it with something,
Right.
whether it's similar or something different, but it's going to have to be some kind of accountability assessment.
Thank you. And I guess my question for that is because since it's been removed, there's a cost associated with the park. So let's say next year they say, oh no, we're going to keep it. Where are we going to get that money?
personal opinion.
Sure.
That the park state aid was not removed because the park is disappearing. I believe it's because we have a new governor who chose to give state aid in the categories he wanted to give state aid. And so I think it's more a function of the new governor rather than the actual testing. Because as Mr. Garrido said, although park may disappear, there most definitely will be some other type of required state testing that all districts must give.
And could funds from other 8 categories be used for that testing, let's say?
Whatever the state deems as state requirements, we must cover it somehow in the budget that we set.
Okay. So I did quick math, so it's about $551,000 more at the state aid. Adding all these minor differences. But even based with that, so having been into these wonderful meetings throughout the years, so I did two calculations. I did one with the additional state aid that was added in, and I have to commend whoever thought of doing that, doing the double for the lease purchases, because that saves us money and interest for the next year. And I think there was some debate as to whether to give it back to the taxpayer or to use it on, I just personally feel that was a good use of the funds in that manner.
Thank you. It was a concerted effort on the members of the committee and the board and the administration. So I will share that with them. Thank you.
And so using that new budget of revenues, of the expenditures, to this, it was only a 0.4% increase, which is phenomenal, but just comparing apples to apples, right? Using the original before this date, it's only 1.6. That's less than half of what it was the previous year, which was 3.9. So, commendable job. And just my only, and again, this is not a criticism of the board or the district, it's just the way that the rules are made. The bank's cap is invisible money, right? It's an amount that can be used at a later date, but at that later date, it will be given back to the tax, it will be impacted upon the taxpayers. It's not, there's not $360,000 in the bank somewhere.
So, you remember when we went down to zero, and just speaking for the board and the committee is, we could have went to zero, that would have been double the money up there, so if we had to go 2%, actually we would have 4% next year if we had to.
Correct.
And that's what hurts us.
It does.
Do the zero. I just want people to understand that it hurts us worse than doing the 1% or 1.5% or whatever it is. It really does hurt the taxpayers.
And again, those are the rules.
Right.
And any of us in our home, I love to take advantage of that rule like that. So, unfortunately, that's the way it is, but it should be, and I'm glad that you do state that this is just an amount that at a later year, if we need that $360,000 can be increased and not impact the 2% level.
And understand, Ms. Garcia, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes for 3 years, right? So we could have this 306, 306, 306, you almost over $1 million.
Right.
Without having to go to the taxpayers.
That's right.
Plus the 2%.
Yes.
Okay, so again, with all the...
But understanding, right?
When the committee met to work on the budget, especially when we heard about the additional state aid, one of the members of the committee had an excellent question. They said, well, what if 3 years from now the governor changes in Trenton, and we've seen recently how things have changed in Trenton tremendously with the new governor. What if things went back the reverse?
Right.
In 3 years, we get a new governor who comes in and decides, as Governor Christie did his first year, to cut Roselle Park state aid by $1.4 million, or what do we do in a horrible situation like that?
Or in the case of How can this be used in case of emergencies?
So that's why we decided to set up our budget this way with the banked cap, sort of like a little comfort that God forbid something of that cap, situation should arise, that there is something that we could do, not necessarily everybody's favorite choice, but we could do to maintain the quality education that the children of Roselle Park deserve.
And again, I thank you, as someone who has always stated, I was a critic of the 2% because, and not having it go before the people, because 2% is, 2% without any question, 1.9, 1.99. But you've done a phenomenal job going with 2%. Thank you very much.
Thank you on behalf of the committee and the entire board.
Now, being harsh,
Appreciate that.
could that banked cap, I'm a parent who says, I want more Texas. Could this be used, to be, and excuse me for the term, yet to be given back, to be put back in the budget as revenue? Because it doesn't exist, right? So there's nothing to give back.
I was just gonna say, you don't give nothing back.
You're not giving anything because it doesn't exist.
All it does is enable future boards to possibly raise future budgets by more than 2%.
And again, that's not saying that this board is waiting in 2021 to say, oh, we got this. I mean, hopefully, the 3 years pass and for whatever reason it's not used. Right? That's the end all game. Right? So as someone who has been very critical of the 2%, and I have nothing, but thank you. Dr. Elfaz, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We'll go on to the consent agenda under personnel. Number 1, district substitutes. 2, medical leave of absence request. B, well, that was A. B is medical leave of absence request. Staff appointments, staff retirement, 5, staff resignation, 6, change of assignment, 7, additional WISE Energize with math personnel, additional sections, and that should be it. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussions?
Sorry.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Cancino, Mr. Gerton, Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Leingang,
Yes.
Ms. Powers, Mr. Sekou,
Yes.
Mr. Signorello,
Yes.
President Harms.
Yes.
On roll call, motion carries.
Under education, items number 9 through 13, 9 education programs, 10 educational trip requests, 11 2018-19 district first aid procedures physician standing order, 12 harassment, intimidation, bullying incidents, 13 workshop attendance requests. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is business, items 14 through 18. 14, approval of bills. 15, Secretary of Treasurer's report. 16, approval of minutes. 17, use of buildings and grounds. And 18, district contracts. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And then we move on to item 19, tentative budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment, Mr. President.
Sure.
Thank you. So, first of all, I would like to thank the board leadership for appointing me to the Finance Committee. I've learned how the financing of the school budget work in an in-depth way. Additionally, like Ms. Gershio said, this year we have a governor who is friendly to education. So Roosevelt Park has seen an increase in funding. But in a lot of senses, as Ms. Gershio noted, we have seen this before. When John Corzine became governor, he gave more money to education. When Chris Christie became governor, he cut education funding drastically in his first year. When this issue of a changing political climate in Trenton that affects our budget was raised during meetings, the Board of Education Administration stated that this reality will be addressed in the present and future budget. So again, that's a kudos to Ms. Gershio for looking forward. But overall, whoever is in office, the issue of property taxes is a concern in Roosevelt Park and the entire state of New Jersey. According to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, the average property taxes in Roosevelt Park is $9,934. Plus, with the federal government installing a $10,000 cap on state and local taxes, homeowners in Roosevelt Park, where average property tax bills are nearing $10,000, will be totally affected. So, now more than ever, the residents of Roosevelt Park should get rid of the 2% cap and be able to vote on the budget. This would do the following. Have all Roosevelt Park voting residents get the opportunity to either accept or reject the budget that is proposed by the BOE. If the voters accept the budget, then more residents thought it's financially good for us. If the voters decide to reject the budget, residents thought it is not good for us. So the outcome of the budget will be in direct control of all Roosevelt Park voters. Therefore, giving all residents the ability to vote on the budget is a way to address ever-increasing property taxes. In addition, this stance is a way to help residents, teachers, the administration, and most important, our students, who I personally know receive a great education in Roosevelt Park. So therefore, for all those reasons, for changing the budget structure, I am voting no on this budget. Thank you, Mr. President, and the administration for the award. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion?
I just want to thank the Finance Committee and especially Mrs. Gershio for working diligently and coming up with some very good ideas for the budget, given the constraints that we have. 1 square mile town, hardly any industry to draw upon a tax base, and we're making do with what we have. And I'm in favor of this budget because it's for our children of Roosevelt Park and moving them forward and doing wonderful things like the STEAM project that Mr. Signorello said. And we have a lot of wonderful things here, and hopefully as we move forward and we continue to ride this positive wave of state aid, it will continue to benefit our children. So again, thank you, Mr. Gershio, and thank you, Finance Committee members, and thank you, Mr. Harms, for your support.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Vice President Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Cancino, Mr. Gerton, Mr. Hemingway,
Yes.
Mr. Longen,
Yes.
Ms. Powers, Mr. Sekou,
No.
Mr. Signorello,
Most definitely yes.
President, threw me off there, Mr. Signorello. Had a rhythm
She was in the
going.
role, yes.
President Harms.
Yes.
Roll call, motion carries.
Next is continuing business. I'm sorry, I have to do one more. This was hand carried. The board, on the recommendation of the superintendent, approves a 4-hour session on Friday, April 6, 2018. Do I have a motion to accept this recommendation?
Make a motion.
Second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, almost from there, I'm telling you. It was upside down. Next, we're under continuing business. Is there any? Is there any new business?
I have a few items of new business,
Sure.
President. One is a crossover item with the Roselle Park Arts Committee. I hope you'll indulge me by allowing me to say something about that. However, the majority of the people in the audience were at the last Roselle Park Arts Committee meeting, and one member of the public brought up the fact that there is student artwork displayed in Borough Hall, which is at least 10 years old, including, I think, one work of art by a student who is now on the council. So he suggested that we try to work with the Board of Education to bring in some new items of student artwork. I've spoken to the superintendent about that and optimistic that that's going to happen. So I'll report that back to the Roselle Park Arts Committee in a couple of weeks. One more thing is that crossing over with the Borough Council, Councilman Fahori is sponsoring a 5K run walk to benefit the USO. That's an organization which benefits service members and veterans. I'll be running in that event, trying to lead a team from the Board of Education. I invite everyone on the board to either join me running or walking or support my efforts to raise money for the USO.
How many miles do you have to walk?
It's 5K, so 3.1 miles.
I have to walk that?
1 square mile down.
3.1? Can I give a donation?
Where and when is this, Mr.?
Oh, it's May 5th, that's a Saturday, and I believe it starts at 8:30 on, Colfax Fields.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes?
I'd just like to, I don't know how many people went to see the school play. I went to see it Saturday night, and like last year, it was awesome. Proud of the children of Roselle Park, the young adults from middle school and high school. Really enjoyable. So I get to see Saturday night this year, and it was, I guess, the senior night. So once again, Park Pride, a nice school play.
I agree. I went Sunday, because Thursday was canceled, so I agree. It was fantastic as usual. Any other new business? Okay, now we'll move into the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address, and you can speak on any item in it.
Jacob, again, 6 post Sheridan in the USO Park. I commend Mr. Soto for taking the stand in which he believes in, and he believes for the residents of Roselle Park and the state of New Jersey. Senior citizens have no children for the last 30 years, but they continue to pay the increases of the state, of the school taxes, and of course the municipal taxes, and county taxes, and federal taxes. Taxation without representation is dangerous. What's good for the kids, for the students, everybody uses, the Board of Education uses it, the municipality uses it, the state uses it, the county uses it. It's for their children and filling their own pockets. Notch babies with Social Security. Some of you were not born at that time yet. But the notch baby don't know what a notch baby is. They were held back on less Social Security income, but they had not been made equal should be paid to them. We work for that money. So security was taken out of our pockets. And the federal government filled their pockets to the tune of $4 trillion. And I forgot to ask a question. How much do we pay for legal fees for the year 2016, 2017, and then 2017, 2018? I know 18 is not finished this year. The total fees, legal fees.
Can you be more specific, the legal fees for
Well,
the entire total?
Yeah.
I will have to get those figures for you. I only have what was listed here in the PowerPoint.
But like we had, that outfit on the East Westfield there, and came back to do a start.
The legal settlement? I believe you are asking about the legal settlement?
Yes.
Okay,
Settlements.
that is correct. That information I
Do
can
we
give.
have legal settlements?
Just the one.
Just legal, not illegal.
No, legal.
That's right, you know,
Mr. Major, your time is up, sorry.
well,
Your time is up, I'm sorry.
my time is up.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry.
Well, I'm sorry.
So here's in 150 Bourbon Street, I forgot to ask, what's the average tax increase?
I will have that information in full detail at the next presentation.
Public check is able to speak.
Yes, I have to confer with Mr. Bloom and get all those figures from him.
Through the chair to Mr. Lange. Last year you had, and I don't know if it was for this or for other expenses, you had asked for an analysis. Did you do that?
No, that's all I can do.
Okay. It's a good idea though.
Right.
And although again, you'll probably be cursing me the next time I come, saying, I thought you said all those good things last time. It's always important, I think, right? And I think we all agree it's always important, even though it's a good figure, to always keep looking. My grace would say. My other question was there a budget presentation? Was I asleep?
Yes. So you have to.
Was it at the previous board meeting?
Yes.
When Mr. Miller gave his finance committee
Did he
report,
speak talking?
yes.
No,
Or did he speak
no,
talking?
No.
Yeah, you heard it.
That's
Was
right.
I whispering it?
We were surprised, so.
Because I'm there, and then this girl comes in and goes, no one showed up. I'm like, showed up to what? And I don't stick my notes, so, wow, okay.
You missed it.
Yeah, I missed you afterwards. Regarding the walkout, I think, beyond what people personally think about it, I was speaking with some of the students, especially the organizers, and I don't know if the board or the administration has reached out to them, either through student council or through the organizers, because they had some ideas as to safety, removing politics. Like one thing that surprised me, they said they would like, at least the students I spoke with said a militant center. They said that would be something that would make them feel safe as students. And I just feel as the people who will be going into these buildings, perhaps an outreach either through council, through the student council, or through the organizers, to just have a round table and just, the eyes of them.
That's an excellent idea. We do have student leadership at the high school that meets with the administration
Right.
regularly to go over, a lot of things for the
But I
security.
mean, especially this one, because right, it's a hot topic, let's say.
Right,
And they had some very eye-opening I wouldn't expect most students. Some I agreed with, some I didn't, but it was amazing. So just to have just a round table, and, maybe something we said. So the public hearing for this is going to be at the next meeting.
April 24th.
April 24th.
And just all meetings stay the same.
Yes, this is the only one because of the budget, when it came out.
Thank you.
That's what thank you.
So just to answer with the security questions, Mr. the superintendent has been going to all the PTA meetings and taking some questions. They have been giving some input. We're going to go to every PTA meeting, but that's a big consideration. Maybe young adults can. And there was 2 children at the high school PTA meeting and brought some concerns, whatever. They spoke up, and I'll say this tonight, that I think the children, they are one of the forefront of security. They have to speak up and say what they say, and they can help us out. It's like we've been saying since 9/11, you see something, say something. Well, it's the same thing in the school district. And I got a little, so I have a dry sense of humor. I said, even if you take, if you see something and want to say something, put on a piece of toilet paper and throw it on Mrs. Costa's door and let her know what's going on. That you guys see this and let us know. So, but we are doing the PTA to all the, myself and Chad are down with the superintendent and field the questions, and we're going to do the rest of them. There's I think a schedule already put out. So, but that's something good to get the student council or the group from the high school and see what they say. Thank you.
I can just expand on my answer to Mr. Kier's that I respect the committee organization, and I'm not on the finance committee. I'm on 3 other committees and have been working hard on those committees. But one item about budget analysis is the adequacy measure, I believe is what we call it, and we're still underfunded. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's another computation that the DOE software gives at the end of the budget. And this new budget puts us at 1.9 million approximately under adequacy. Still.
So that means we're running on less than what's expected.
That is correct.
That
That is correct.
And one item about security, security and gun safety is not just a school issue. In the past couple of years, we've seen shootings at shopping malls, movie theaters, concerts, nightclubs, army bases, churches. Security is an issue for the entire country, no matter where we are. And in response to the, I don't know if it's in response, but in the wake of all the student demonstrations that's been happening, the New Jersey Assembly passed yesterday 6 new bills regarding gun safety, including eliminating magazine sizes and also allowing procedures for guns to be taken from people who are deemed to be threats to their own safety or to the safety of others. So I encourage members of the public, if they have opinions about those laws, to contact, now will be discussed in the New Jersey State Senate, so contact Senator King and let him know how you feel about this law. We as the school board can only do so much to protect our citizens. We need help from state and national lawmakers.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Keith Hyman, 12 Woodside Avenue, Roosevelt Park, New Jersey. Obviously. Question is, has there been any new thoughts or any on video, like recording of this, or trying to get the audio at least to the camera or something of that sort?
TV 32 and 34.
No, that doesn't mean you broadcast on it. But like, at least having maybe a better way of audio on it, or has there been any concern on the
No,
audio?
there hasn't been anything at that yet. I think when we get into one of the goals of the board is to go on to the RPTV again, and once we get into that, I think then we'll be discuss and look into other areas of doing it. With the sound systems and all that other stuff, and see what we can do with there. But right now, we haven't discussed anything in that.
And then the security measures, is that just a plan or is it actually implemented?
No. It's just discussions right now to see the best, what the school district can do. Again, as somebody said, last meeting, he asked, I think Mr. Kirsten asked if we were going to have armed guards, and Mr. Garrido and myself emphatically said no, so we're not going to go there. But that's why there's a committee. That's why there's a committee put together, working with the police department. Good suggestion tonight to go to the students, get some input from them. But nothing's been implemented yet. No.
Yeah, because the alarm, the metal detectors, that's a little I feel like a little too expensive because I saw a lot of projects, the laptop initiative and all that. I'm assuming that's the lease purchase portion.
Right, that's correct. And again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the cost, I don't think well, I shouldn't say we're not looking at it, but I myself, I don't think anybody on the board here could put a cost or a price tag. And again, if there's something that's very expensive, then we're going to have to find ways to do it if it's going to help our security and protect our children. So.
Yeah, no, that's always...
No, I can see it's a thing, but again, I don't think that would be a deterrent. That we should not look at because of the cost. We should look at everything and see if we can protect our children. That's how we look at it.
And is it STEM or STEAM?
Steam.
Oh, it's really STEam?
Yes. Used to be.
The A is for art.
Art, right, the added art to it instead of, they left it
And you
out.
got class S for savings. So,
It's going to cost us.
is this something required or is this something?
No. This is just something that the board decided on, a year and a half ago or so, that this would be something that would be beneficial to our high school, students, and then also going down into the middle school, because our plans are moving it down into the middle school. Our robotics, our art, our architects, they are doing a fantastic job out there, going out to Texas and winning first place, third place, beating big, larger towns and states. So we felt at that time it's time to start moving something forward to help them to become better what they are.
And is it like the thinking I suppose if you do this, there'll be less students going through the magnet?
No, that's not a thought anymore. And board members, if I'm stating wrong, please let me know. That was thoughts years ago on trying to compete. What we decided is that we have to give our students what we possibly can give them, let them make the decision where they go. But we still think that we can compete against the magnet in what we're doing. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. Did I forget anything? Okay. Yes.
There'll be no armed teachers, right?
No. There'll be no armed teachers. No. Just to say, no, they wouldn't. Not even them. At this time, if there's nothing else, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let everyone drive safe.